So you may be asking yourself, if you've watched previous videos, so how do I change this? So now we're going to transition into how do we change this, particularly from moving from the false self, which we can call ego, to the true self. So I have a reading for us taken from Richard Rohr's Meditations called From the Bottom Up. So at one point in the video, I'm going to ask you to get into a relaxed state and just kind of take in this part of the reading. It's just going to be one paragraph, one short paragraph, and actually to not only think it, but feel it. So I'll let you know when that happens. So this is called Contemplation of Who I Am. And by the way, central question in our life as human beings, who am I? So I'll ask you that right now. Who are you? Who am I? Most of us have lived our whole lives with a steady stream of consciousness, with a continual flow of ideas, images, and feelings, and probably some other stuff going on. And at every moment of our lives, we cling to these thoughts and sensations so much that I don't have the idea has me. When I taught psychology, I used to ask the question of the kids, are you thinking your thoughts or are your thoughts thinking you? That's what Richard Rohr is pointing to right here. If our thoughts are thinking us, we're going to be on a turbulent sea, being moved around by the sea. I don't have the feeling has me. You know, that's particularly evident with an emotion like anger, where we act on the anger impulsively. That's when the emotion has me. We have to discover who this I, quote, I really is. The one who has these always passing feelings and thoughts. Who am I behind my thoughts and feelings? The fixed point that watches these things pass through me is the real me. So now we're looping back to simply notice. And we're going to up on the idea of simply notice, and I'm going to call it moving into the witnessing presence. Learn how to abide there in peace. So we can abide in peace in our beingness. So Eckhart Tolle, I think in The Power of Now, tells a wonderful story, intriguing story, and this is based on my memory, so it might not be exact. He was in a deep state of depression over an extended period of time, even though he was living in a, quote, idyllic state. I believe in England he was a professor. But anyway, he's in this deep depression, and it deepened to the point of suicidal depression. And one day, I think it was in the morning, he woke up and said, or he received this question, who is this I that sees me being depressed? To make his story a little short, there was a major transformation in his life. So who is this I that sees me thinking these thoughts, feeling these emotions, having these impulses to action, and dealing with the condition of our body? So who is that I? I call that I the transcendent I. It is the higher self in some literature, or the God self, or the Tao, or spirit, whatever you'd like to call it. We have to find a way to get beyond our self-image and our ideas about who we are. And I'm going to give you that way in a few minutes. We have to discover the face that we already had before we were born. Who we were in God all along. Because before we did anything right or wrong. And by the way, my suggestion in doing this work is to move beyond right and wrong, good, bad, better, worse. We talked about that a bit earlier. This is the first goal of contemplation. This, quote, I, is capable of union with God or Spirit or the Tao, whatever you like to call it. Now I'm going to ask you to take several deep breaths and relax because we're going to do our guided imagery. Again, this is only going to be about a minute. So go ahead and take 3 deep breaths. And relax. Now, imagine a river or stream. You're sitting on the bank of this river, where boats and ships are sailing past. When the stream flows past your inner eye, I ask you to name each one of the vessels or thoughts floating by. For example, one of the boats could be called My Anxiety About Tomorrow. Or along comes the ship, Objection to My Spouse. Or I don't do that well. Every judgment that you passed is one of these boats. Take the time to give each one of them a name, then let it move on. So that ends the guided imagery, and I'm going to go on with the reading. For some people, this is a very difficult exercise because we're used to jumping aboard our boats immediately. In doing so, we give them gas. As soon as we own a boat and identify with it, it picks up its own energy. We have to practice unpossessing, letting go, detaching from our thoughts and emotions, or they own us. With every idea, image that comes into our head, we have the opportunity to say, no, I am not that. I don't need that. That's not me. So a question you can ask yourself, is this who I am? This frees you to intentionally choose your divine identity instead. Some of the boats that are accustomed to us jumping aboard immediately head back upstream in return, trying to catch our attention again. Some people feel the need to torpedo their boats, and by the way, that's not going to work. But you must not attack, hate, or condemn any idea or thought. Otherwise, you're judging it. That would be merely your perfectionistic ego trying to, quote, win. This is the basic training in nonviolence. You must not hate what's going on internally. The point is to recognize thoughts and emotions and to say, that's not necessary, I don't need that, but do it very amicably. If we learn to handle our own souls tenderly and lovingly, then we'll be able to carry the same loving wisdom into our other relationships. 1,000 seeming distractions are now 1,000 opportunities to choose spirit instead. So there is really no such thing as distraction. And by the way, one of the most insidious addictions is the addiction to distractions. So we'll continue with the discussion of I am in a minute, I guess.